All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Economic Development Committee to order. My name is Commissioner Susan Rodriguez McDowell, and I have the pleasure of serving as chair of this committee. I do want to have introductions of all of our committee members, but first I need to make an announcement about remote participation. We welcome the public who have been provided with a call-in number to access this meeting. The agenda was sent out to those already on the distribution list. If anyone would like electronic copies of any presentation materials today, please make these requests via email to Megan Witt. Her email address is megan.witt@mecnc.gov. Okay, so let's go ahead and introduce everyone who is in the room today, beginning with our commissioners, starting to my right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Mark Jarrell. I represent District 4.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Laura Meyer and I represent District 5.
Our fourth committee member is not here today, but we have the pleasure of having our vice chair with us.
Good afternoon. I'm Mecklenburg County Commissioner Elaine Powell. I represent District 1, and I wanted to be here for this presentation. So.
All right, great. And so we also want to introduce everyone in the room, beginning with our deputy county managers.
Yes, good afternoon, Leslie Johnson, Deputy County Manager.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mike Bryant, Deputy County Manager.
Thank you. And then we'll come over to this side.
Good afternoon. My name is Roger Johnson, Economic Development Director.
Shahid Rana, Deputy Director for Economic Development. Back row.
Good afternoon, Agustin Velasquez, Economic Development Office.
Clay Andrews, Office of Economic Development.
Jamelia Davis, Economic Development.
Keisha Whitley, Economic Development. And Megan Witt, Economic Development.
Awesome. So we do have a couple of guests in the room. If you would like to introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you so much. My name is Elizabeth Underwood, and I'm with Lake Norman Economic Development.
I'm Jamie Lane, also with Lake Norman Economic Development. I'm the Community Relations Manager.
Okay, thank you for joining us today. I do want to just acknowledge that we have our new director, Roger Johnson. I've been calling him Ed for some reason. I don't know why, but thank you for being here. Your very first meeting. We want to welcome you, and we're glad that you're joining us today. And welcome to Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. All right. So with that, we are going to entertain a motion to approve our minutes.
So moved.
Second.
June 21st. All right. So we have, let's see, there's 3 of us, so we do have a quorum.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and do a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I don't hear anyone. Okay. Those are approved. So that is the meeting minutes for June 21st, 2023. I will now recognize Deputy County Manager Leslie Johnson to introduce the first and next and only agenda item.
Well, we do have closed sessions this
In open
evening,
session,
but
right.
open session, yes. So I am pleased or privileged to have this opportunity to have the Lake Norman EDC make a presentation to you. As you may be aware, one of our ARPA-funded programs was this Pivot program, which is an internship program around manufacturing. And they've had like wonderful success, and we thought it was a great opportunity to share, have them have the opportunity to share with you this pilot project, as well as give you the opportunity to ask any questions for them. So I'll turn it over now to both Jamie and Elizabeth.
All right. Well, again, thank you all so much for having us today. Again, my name is Elizabeth Underwood. I'm the Workforce Development Manager with Lake Norman Economic Development, and I have here with me my colleague Jamie Lane, who is our Community Relations Manager. We worked really closely with Eric Ortega at the Office of Unified Workforce Development. He was an incredible asset for us getting this program up and off the ground. And we also we were able to bring on another employee who cannot be here because she is a teacher, but she was great for working with us over the summer. Her name's Jennifer Carr. I'm excited to tell you about the Pivot program. I'm going to try and stick to 15 minutes. So if I kind of go over, start waving around or jumping and doing something to get my attention. And And feel free to ask questions. I know this is a pilot program. We have learned a lot of lessons along the way, but I'm really excited and especially proud of how this program turned out this summer. And so I'm excited to tell you about it. But first, I want to kick us off with, hopefully an ad doesn't play, 1 minute of comedic relief.
No, you come here to me.
Oh, I see. I thought you just really liked your new couch.
You know, just follow my lead.
Okay.
Come on, Sheila. All right, okay. Here we go. All right, ready? Turn. Okay. Turn.
I don't think we can turn anymore.
I just don't think it's gonna fit.
Oh, yeah, well, come on, up. Yes. Here we go. Pivot. Pivot.
Shut up!
That is my favorite thing to do when telling people about the Pivot program, because it is quite literally exactly what happened this summer. We pivoted and we pivoted and we pivoted. And when we were coming up with a name for this program, we have sort of an inside joke in our office that everything for the past 3-4 years has been pivoted. And so we want to use this pivot for good and to pivot students in a different direction in their career paths, and hopefully into a new pipeline of workforce solutions for the manufacturing sector in the Lake Norman area. So I thought I'd start off by kind of giving you our mission and our vision statements for the project that we came up with at the beginning. Our mission is overall to enroll and commit students to paid internships with manufacturers in the towns of Huntersville, Cornelius, and Davidson, to grow the local workforce through the introduction of aspects of manufacturing, such as logistics, sales, finance, and more. And our vision is for LNED and Mecklenburg County to partner and introduce students to propel interest, motivation, and skills through providing assets, training, and placement into fields of interest that will keep them engaged in this 8-week paid program. So a little bit of background for you. The Pivot program was brought to us by Mecklenburg County Office of Unified Workforce Development. That's a mouthful, but so in order to fund this program, we had a budget of $125,000. And for that budget, we were able to pay students salaries at $15 an hour, which roughly we gave them a really flexible time frame, so they could pick and choose when they did their hours and how they did their hours, because these are high school students we're talking about. They may have sports or camps or things like that that they're also engaged with. We were also able to have $1,000 per student for supportive services. And so for those supportive services, we deemed transportation, which we'll talk more in depth about. We provided them a lunch stipend for every day that they were there during the lunch hours, their uniform reimbursements and requirements, and then any additional training that the companies wanted them to have prior to starting this internship. We also had a budget line item for personnel and marketing. So I wanted to walk you through this timeline. And the reason for that is we were brought this project in March with a June start date. And so I'm proud of how fast we were able to put it together. And so what we did is in March, Eric and his team brought this project to us because he sees our team of workforce solutions and what we're doing, and hopefully the things that we are doing to change students' lives through other programs we already run through our office. So it was a really great plug and play scenario. In April, we gathered 12 area manufacturers for a lunch and learn to pitch them the program. And so we were able to, at the same time, market to students via that network that we already have with the CTE coordinators at the 3 high schools we primarily work with. And so at the same time, we were marketing to the businesses and the students. And normally that doesn't happen at the same time, but somehow we were able to pull it off. And so we also collected applications during the month of April. In May, We had 21 students that were interviewed face-to-face for that soft skills training and those employability skills. 19 of those interns were placed in the various industries and manufacturing, such as HR, logistics, finance, marketing, we have IT, and we were able to partner with 5 of those manufacturers from the Lunch and Learn. The reason that all 12 of them didn't immediately sign on, the feedback that we got, it was too fast. And from March to June, that's really fast to produce job descriptions, get it up the chain, if you will. And so we're hoping to engage more companies this coming year, but of the 5 companies we had, they were all just unbelievably shining stars. And I'll tell you more about that. In June, the students started their hours. This was a 160-hour program. And as I mentioned, we paid them $15 an hour. We also, did supportive services like transportation, uniform allowance, lunch stipends, and any supplies/tools that they needed for their job that were required of them. In July, the students continued their hours. They pushing towards that 160-hour, but we also were able to provide financial literacy training in July in partnership with Commonwealth Charlotte. They also got a little bit of HR training. So now you've got all this experience. How can I translate that onto a resume to boost myself up in society? So we did weekly check-ins with all 19 of those students who were placed, and we did monthly check-ins with all of our employers, just to make sure everything was smooth sailing, get feedback. The whole theme of this program has been feedback, feedback, feedback. We want to know what we're doing well. We want to know what we're not doing well. And so that we can improve upon that. And in August, the students completed the pivot program. We facilitated exit surveys, which was very in-depth, honestly, maybe too in-depth. It probably took somebody an hour to complete the survey. There was 35 questions that you had to write a paragraph for each one for. But we had 100% response rate. And we also required them to do virtual exit interviews with myself and my team. Just for that qualitative research. We want to know as much as possible, and so that we can do this again and do it well. And so we started refining the program to ensure that it really meets those evolving needs of our students and our businesses. So we asked companies to use these 5 pillars to define their intern positions. I won't read them all to you, but we asked them to do 1, to create a job description, to give us a purpose of that intern, to create their job duties and responsibilities. We asked what kind of required qualifications they had of the students, and then we wanted to make sure that they were in working conditions. And so what you're probably thinking, or maybe thinking, is how is this legal? How did we put students aged 16 to 18, so minors, in manufacturing environments that could possibly be hazardous or dangerous? The answer to that is if they were deemed a hazardous and dangerous manufacturer, which there's a list of categories for that. If they were deemed that, then students could only work in office environments there, not on the floor, and things like that. But not all of the companies were deemed hazardous and dangerous. So here's a breakdown of the 5 companies we partnered with this summer. We've got Champion Tire and Wheel, Metrolina Greenhouses, Forbo, Burkert, and Dateweiler. At Champion Tire and Wheel, let's see, yeah, you can see my cursor. We had 3 students in the race shop, 2 students in the test shop, 2 students in the maintenance shop, and a student in the office/IT area. We'll talk a lot more about Champion because they were really our shining star in terms of companies this summer. They took this program and really ran with it. They were incredible in nurturing and mentoring the students, making sure that they were growing in their careers throughout the summer. At Metrolina, we had 2 students in HR, 1 in sales, 1 in R&D, 1 in purchasing and supply chain. Forbo, we had an HR and finance intern. At Burkert, we had a sales technical assistant and a logistics intern. And at Dateweiler, we had 2 in-seal technician interns. So the goal of that was really to have a diverse amount of positions represented in manufacturing. The goal of the program, the 2 goals of the program was 1, to take away all the barriers that any student could possibly have in order for them to complete the program. So those barriers being transportation, money for uniforms, some of the companies required steel-toed boots. Those can be really expensive. I think the cheapest pair I found was $85. I mean, those can be really expensive. And if you get a good quality pair, that can last you years and years. And so this is kind of the breakdown of percentage of what those positions were represented. We had in what I would categorize them as technical, office, HR, and finance. But a really good array. Some statistics we're really proud of. We had 95% student completion. We had one student who didn't complete the 160 hours. They were on the way, but the one student by the end of August didn't complete those hours. And then the middle statistic there, 7 out of 8 students at Champion Tire were offered jobs. Now that's not 85% of the total student population. Going into this program, we knew only Champion was going to offer jobs if the students did well over summer. And the reason for that is their minors. It's hard to convince companies to hire minors. I learned that definitely along the way, but we are proud that at Champion, 7 out of the 8 students who were placed there were offered jobs.
In school.
Yeah, and school credit. And then 89% of the students indicated on their exit survey that this internship provided insight into the manufacturing industry. And I had to cut down a little bit on words, and that they are now considering a career path in manufacturing. Here's some supportive services breakdown. For the lunch stipends, we had 17 out of 19 students utilize the lunch stipends, which was just a flat $10 a day if you were there and took a lunch break. A lot of the students that didn't apply to them all the time because they worked a 8 to 11:30 shift, so they were not there during lunch hours, or they worked a 1 to 4 shift. But over summer, 17 out of 19 students did utilize the lunch stipends. 4 out of 19 students utilized Uber for minors. We had to go through a process of getting approved for Uber for minors. And these students indicated they would not have participated otherwise. This was a big learning lesson for us this summer because Uber is really expensive, really expensive. So that is something we are looking to explore for next year. You can't beat the convenience of it. And we had to take on a lot of extra liability insurance for that. But we would really hopefully love to utilize there's a microtransit pilot in the spring up in the Lake Norman area. We're hoping that pilot is successful and that we can use that next summer, partnering with CATS. We had 9 out of 19 students utilize the uniform reimbursement. And then we had 18 out of 19 students attend the financial literacy workshops, which were in partnership with Commonwealth Charlotte. Oops, went too fast. Most of the data is qualitative data because we don't have a lot of numbers to show other than how many students participated, what their success rate was, things like that. So really the best indication of how successful this program was is the feedback we're getting from the students and their parents and their mentors. So a couple things to highlight. I'm running late on time here, but number 3, the third one down says, this internship was a great way to gain working experience and prepare you for a future career. I learned important skills such as communication, accountability, and working with a team. And those are things you cannot teach. And then these are questions that came from our exit survey. What is the greatest lesson you learned this summer? I think these are all, it's hard to pick one to highlight, but the first one says the greatest lesson that I've learned this summer is to never be satisfied with the skills that I have and to always strive to learn more and grow as a person. There's always something to learn no matter how young you may be, and there's always someone willing to teach. All you have to do is simply have the courage to ask. I thought that was pretty powerful. There are 3 students I want to highlight. I want to go quickly. This will be the longest one, but this is Jonathan May. We had a requirement this year of ages 16 to 18. This was our one exception, and we were not going to place him because of his age until I got a personal call from both his principal and his engineering teacher at North Mecklenburg High School. And they both said, essentially, you would be stupid not to take this kid. He is the brightest thing that has come through our program in years and years and years. He, as a freshman at the time, was helping seniors on their engineering senior design programs. So he was placed at Champion Tire, and the reason for that is because Champion was the only one who would take a 15-year-old. And so, but we were strategic in that. We talked with them and we said, you really have a shining star here. Utilize him, really utilize him. And so Jonathan was placed there, and he called me, and he was so apologetic, so kind. He said, "Miss Underwood, I really hope this doesn't come off as rude, but I'm really apprehensive to accept this placement. I think I have a greater skill set. I don't really want to be loading tires all summer and doing this." And I said, "Jonathan, I think they're really going to work with you. Why don't you give it a chance?" Since then, he has come back and said that this is his dream job. I have that. I have him on video saying that. The second week, he said this is his dream job. Champion partners with First Turn Innovations, which is a NASCAR innovative hub right up the road. And they ended up splitting his time due to his engineering skills with FTI. And at FTI, he learned how to create and work circuit boards. With that, he took those circuit boards and completely engineered a new camera system for Champion Tire. So all of their tires, when they come back from NASCAR races, they go through this camera system to make sure there's no dents, dings, and that the wheels can continue to be used. He has completely changed the productivity and positively impacted this company at 15 years old. So there's my soapbox about Jonathan. I told you to be quick. I'm sorry. Here's another student, Peter. Peter is Champion's another shining star. He was offered a job afterwards, and he was the first one they offered. They've offered him at $19 an hour to continue working part-time until he graduates. When he graduates, they have offered him a salaried job. They want to pay for him to go to school to become a certified diesel mechanic. And because we had some excess balance in the budget, we were able to pay for over $2,000 of tools for him to accept this job. And then this is Iniwala. And if the media called me today and said, "I want to talk to a student," who would I talk to? This is the person I would send them to, because she is so incredibly excited about the program, and she is just singing it from the rooftops. This is a quote that she said to me recently. It was so good I had to write it down. "I wasn't treated as an intern. I was treated as an actual employee. They treated me as an equal and as an adult. Not only did I learn several technical skills, I learned how to be a woman in a professional capacity. The connections I made this summer with my coworkers will definitely stay with me forever." So I want to know if you have questions for me, but the most important thing out of all of this is I wanted to say thank you for funding this program this summer. I know I'm biased, but I think we have a darn good program put together, and I think thank you, Shaw, for connecting us with Eric and helping us connect these dots together. I think several students have indicated like this has changed my life. This has changed the trajectory of what I want to do in the future. And that's just music to my ears. That just tells me that we're doing it, and we're doing it well. And this has a huge positive impact on our community. So the goal for this program is hopefully with your support to do it again next year and for years to come, and maybe even expanding that to the trades. And to include other companies and broaden our scope so that we can maximize how many students we're able to touch every summer. So thank you for inviting us to talk about this and for, again, funding this summer. And do you have any questions for us?
Wow, thank you for that amazing presentation. I'll turn it over to our board members to see if anyone has any questions. Commissioner Meyer?
Thank you so much. It's incredible. I love hearing the good news after, we fund programs and never hear from. So I'm wondering, can we get them to come speak to the full board? Is that something that we could?
Well,
You want to talk about job market?
this item was part of the participatory budgeting process. And I'm very confident that at some point, Our Director Adrian Cox will provide the board an update,
Okay.
and certainly he can touch on this program. in
Okay.
particular.
And, we have public forums or whatever, when anybody can come speak, and maybe a student or two can come speak, because I know we'd all like to hear it. It's incredible. We're the only funders, so no other funding?
Correct,
Okay. And these are, they're all in high school?
correct.
And do you take dropouts?
We did not this summer,
'Cause they
but
have been
that's.
enrolled- They have enrolled in the town schools.
Via the language in the contract, they had to be enrolled in a school
Okay.
and or have just graduated. We had two students who had just graduated in May and started in June.
Okay. Is there any partnership with CP and their workforce program?
We did, so for example, we partnered with CP to ensure none of the companies actually had required trainings for the students beforehand, but we were in talks with them to make sure that if they did, CP was going to be willing to help us and negotiate a fair price on that.
Okay. I think that's really all you answered. I just want to give a shout out to Commonwealth. I love that you partnered with Commonwealth. That's wonderful.
They were awesome. They
That's-
were incredible, and the students were really engaged. They threw out candy and they really, kept them really engaged. So it was awesome. I learned a lot personally too.
That's fantastic. I just am curious, these companies, I don't know what they do.
Sure.
I'm just curious I know what Champion does and Metrolina Greenhouses, but the other three, what do they
Sure,
do?
I'll give you a 30-second elevator pitch for all of them. Champion Tire and Wheel manufactures all of the tires and wheels for NASCAR and some F1. They produce something like 2,000 to 3,000 wheels every
Race.
week.
Every
For
race.
every race.
3,000 out.
That it was just crazy to me. And so they were an incredible partnership. Metrolina Greenhouses, they are the supreme supplier to Walmart, Home Depot, and Lowe's for plants. They have both vegetation and you're better.
Perennials
versed than
and
I-
annuals.
Perennials, annuals. I mean, they have a vegetable, they have over 4,000 kinds of plants there and a span over almost 100 acres.
No,
Way
the
more.
greenhouses alone encompass 600 acres.
Yeah, they have a massive, massive footprint in our community. Forbo manufactures belts. So for example, if you've ever been on a treadmill, 99% of the time that is a Forbo product. They also do things like in airports that bring around your suitcases, supermarkets, the belt system like that. Burkert does fluid engineered systems, fluid management systems. Don't quote me on the phrasing there. But that means like breweries, the Bellagio fountains in Las Vegas that shoot up the water. That's a Burkert product. And then Dateweiler does. They were a traditional manufacturer years and years ago. They have transitioned and they make several different products, but they make now they're known for their doctor blades. And that's not in a medical sense. If you have a printing press, there's a blade that has to scrape off the ink. And so they are the pristine patent holder of this blade.
Interesting.
Yeah, so a wide variety of
Yeah.
companies.
And they
here.
actually are now starting to get into the medical blades. And they have the gold levels, like they're 100% gold, and the cut on them is different than any other cut, but they are now like infiltrating, getting into the medical business.
Highly engineered product.
Mhm. Well, thank you. And thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Fascinating. Commissioner Jarrell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. So one of the board's priorities is workforce.
Mhm.
It's really important to this board. It's important to the community. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for standing up the program so quickly. It's pretty amazing
Thank
how
you.
the program was built so quickly. And I was sitting here thinking, a lot of times we're in the process of researching and studying all these things, but you guys did it, which I can appreciate.
Thank you.
And not only did you just do it, you did it well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's
Phenomenal.
very complimentary.
I think the qualitative data is very important. I think it's very important. Obviously, you had quantitative data here as well. And, we'll be able to tell over time what the impact is, but certainly the qualitative approach, the way you packed it in here, I think it was Excellent.
Thank you. One
Um,
thing I did fail to mention to you all, we are expecting to put out a full report. This data was analyzed in 3 days. The last student finished this program last week. So we obviously haven't had time to really put together a full report. And like you said, we won't know the impact for that for a while. But we're expecting a full report at either the end of October or beginning of November. And I'm happy to share that with you all once we do.
well, we'll definitely want to see that. One of the things that I think would be important too, I would be curious to get some feedback from the parents or guardians or
And
those folks that
I
were
don't
there.
have to answer to this because Peter that we were talking about that was offered the job. The reason he even applied is he lives in my neighborhood. And I saw his dad running one day. His dad stopped me and was like waving. I'm like, well, what's Peter gonna do after college? And he's like, girl, no idea. The kid's all over the place. He doesn't know what it is. He wants to lay in bed and watch videos, you know? And I said, oh, and this is right when we got it. And I was like, oh my God, he would be the perfect trial for this program. He was delayed in signing up. He wasn't very responsive, you know, with the
He
things
was
that we
nervous.
asked. Yes, he was.
nervous.
And but so then anyway, he got the position. He's like turned his life around. Like, this is what he wants to do. He comes home every day and he's like, they're like, he's all greased up. And it's because he doesn't care. He's learned to wash his own clothes because she won't wash the greasy clothes.
His
I mean, it's
parents
just
have,
different. Like,
his parents have told me
Yeah.
he wakes up with stars in his
yes,
eyes.
yeah. And it's
that
not a
he
big deal to
has-
get up early.
Yeah,
You know,
and that
it's-
he has a
it's-
new zest for life.
Yeah.
So
And it was like, you know, and Jonathan May as well. I just popped in one day to do a little reel and Jonathan, they're just fake talking. And they said, and his boss is like, well, since we're just sitting here, how is your first 2 weeks, you know? And they're all like, Jonathan's first say, you know, I found my dream job. And he was like, really? Yes, this is what I want to do. And he didn't want to be there at first.
So a couple of things, so I can wrap up and allow Commissioner Powell and Commissioner Rodriguez McDowell. I hate that Commissioner Altman's not here. I'd be remiss if I didn't say, I mean, while workforce is a priority for the board, I mean, she has been a true champion and an amazing voice for us. And so I definitely want to shout her out. I know she's upset that she can't be here right now. So I would encourage you to reach out to her, please, and touch base so that she can hear this straight from you, as opposed to just watching this. But when you break down the data for us, any way that you can slice it, whether socioeconomically, racially, you know, I'd really be interested. I think we'd be really interested to see where you
Sure.
pull from. The other thing that I wanted to add is scale, right? So give us information on what it takes to scale.
Hmm.
What would we be looking at over X period of time? The expansion of different companies and whatever that would look like. We need to understand that as well.
sure.
And then obviously one of our colleagues will ask for budget to see exactly where everything went to. So, and I know staff looked at that. And the final thing I would say just to our staff. So with our ARPA funds, Mike, and I mean, Leslie, obviously you leading over here and ED, Shaw, thank you, and the entire team. You guys have heard us loud and clear. That is so important. And this is a prime example of something that the board has said or set as a priority, and you guys clearly executed on it and overachieved. So thank you all for that. Thank
Definitely
you, Madam
welcome. It's a
Chair.
team effort. And the one thing I want to go on the record for correction, because Mike did pull it up for me, it was not the ARPA funds, it was the participatory budget process. So
Oh,
you remember when we did
participatory
that
budget,
budget
okay.
process and
I got you.
individuals got to identify potential opportunities with those dollars. That's what this one came from.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. But regardless,
But
it still came from
Yes.
county funding and however it was filtered out and the teams looked at it. So just want to shout out
And
all of our staff. So thank you.
honestly, we did not put this for everybody. Like, it was not like broadcast everywhere. Simply because we wanted.
Yeah, we strategically
market.
marketed, of course,
Yeah.
you know, can't really get into the fine details
Yeah.
here, but we strategically marketed to the CTE students
Uh-huh.
at the 3 high schools. Because these are students who, you know, my name's Johnny and I hate English,
Mhm.
but I can take a lawnmower apart and put it back
Mhm.
together in 10 minutes. And I'm the perfect person for this program.
Yeah. Yeah, that and the fact that when you're doing this and doing it strategically, and we said things to other students, and as they're doing this program, they're telling their friends. And now that they want more information, when are y'all gonna start? When, when we're gonna hear more about it?
Yeah, we've got lots of questions.
Mhm.
When are you opening applications?
Yeah.
It's like, well,
Hold on,
we gotta make sure that we fund it for next year. So,
Commissioner Powell?
So the group that you really need to thank, beyond us, is the participatory budgeting group, who have, and District 1, North Mecklenburg, has been especially high pressure on me to say, when is this going to happen? When are we going to find out how our $500,000 was spent? And so they listed their top priorities, and this was, I'm pretty sure it was in the top 3. Of what they said that they wanted and what we needed in North Mecklenburg. And I agree with Commissioner Jarrell. It's amazing the turnaround of
thank you.
when you found out that you had this surprise landfall of funding for something. And I had written down how you said it might be too much qualitative, like 35 questions might be too much, but thank you for doing it, because we need to find out what works.
Yeah.
And this looks like, from your whole presentation, looks very successful. And I especially love the mom call that a mom called, because like every child has some type of giftedness, and it might not be English or math. But I love that you listened to it. And I love that Champion was willing to take that risk. I wanted to ask you personally, in your work in economic development, what has this been like for you personally?
So I tell people that we talk a lot about, and this committee knows, our wins and our losses in economic development, and our project wins and the amount of money they're investing in our community and the amount of jobs that they're creating in XYZ. This to date has been my personal best project win. And that has been a huge, that has really impacted me personally. Short answer to your question.
I can feel it.
I'm very passionate, if you can't tell.
I can feel it.
I'm all about it.
And Jamie?
It's been an eye opener, that kids won't just necessarily sit on their devices all the time. Like if you're given, not going to get coffee as an intern, but you're given Walmart files to go file and then reconnect with people. You were an employee and you're doing an actual adult job. Watching, I had 2 friends that actually applied for the program, and watching the 2, it transformed these kids, just gave them direction. And I mean, when I was a high school student, I didn't know what the heck, my dad was a builder, so I'm going to be an interior designer. And then you find something later in life that you never were exposed to, and you're like, why not expose people to this now? Because that would have changed my life earlier if I had known that. And I think that's a huge part of it. And I will say also, Champion Tire is the only one that rotated these kids through all their departments. So they all learned a different skill, which that's like my thing. I think they should all, and then the last 2 weeks, you concentrate on the 2 things or the one thing that you learned and loved, to see if that's the direction you want to carry out.
Yeah, they kind of modeled a program that we want to implement in all of the companies. Again, like I could sit here and talk for 15 hours about all the minute details, but they are someone that we talked to and said, are you able to rotate the students to your different departments? And then whatever they landed on as being most successful for that student is where they placed them. So their original placement may not be where they ended up, but we had 3 students placed in the diesel mechanic shop. 2 of the 3 ended up being a good fit. One of them was a better fit in the race shop. So I know I'm running way over, and I'm so sorry, but any other questions?
Just thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, I mean, obviously it's fantastic. One of the things that I really appreciated was that you had a stipend or the support dollars for each student to be able to use however they needed. I think that is a huge element, to help people be successful in these types of situations. So I think that's a great part of the program that you did.
I will add, just for clarification, that we did not offer an $1,000 cash stipend. We had students, use that $1,000. They didn't know that there was $1,000 in their name, but they used, they knew that they had access to transportation funds, uniform funds, things like that. Cause we didn't want to hand a 16-year-old $1,000 because
not
if
return.
I was 16 and got handed $1,000, I would have gone to the mall,
Yeah.
So we did it more of a reimbursement type, and that way we have a paper trail for every receipt, every payment, every single thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, just for them to know that they have that support,
Yes.
really frees them up. And so that's really great.
That was the one thing that we need help with, is the transportation part of it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that we've got some refining to
Yeah.
do, and this was a pilot program on purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one thing that we'll work
And
on
then
for next year.
last, I would just say, I think the financial literacy, adding that piece to the whole thing is huge. And I think it also really adds, to the kids feeling like, wow, this is what I want to do. I think the idea that you actually made money,
Mhm.
and it was decent. And now I know what to do with that money. That just changes the trajectory, 180 degrees. So I think those are some elements that are just fantastic. And of course, we always want to talk about scale, but we know this is just a pilot. But anyway, I really do appreciate all the hard work that you guys put in. And especially I loved reading. I read all of the
I was gonna say, you mentioned
comments.
the bank account. If you look at number
Yeah.
3, it says hard work pays off. Working at Champion was tough at work at times, but when I checked my bank account, it was worth it.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny enough to
Yeah.
include.
No, it really is a perspective that kids, they get that job and they actually make money and it's like.
It gives them
changes
a
things.
sense of purpose. So.
Yeah, it really does. So, well, thank you. I think if there's not any other further comments or questions, I know we need to go into a closed session. So we just really appreciate you guys bringing this to us today, and thank you for all that you did to turn these lives,
Pivoted
around.
them on around just like that couch. Well, thank you so much for inviting us to share with you today. My information was on the last portion of that slide. I'm happy to connect with you outside and share even more data if you want to hear me continue on the soapbox. So thank y'all so much.
Thank you. All right, so we are going to prepare to go into closed session. We need a motion to do so.
Second.
All right, so now we need, yes, now we need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All right. Motion is made by Commissioner Doyle, seconded by Commissioner Meyer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we are adjourned. Thank you.
Also,
everyone.
just wanted to make sure that you had enough time to transition
Thank you.
and get your dinner so that y'all can be
Yeah.
at your next closed session meeting on